medieval
stepped out.
Very crap. You know,
Yes.
Yeah.
use that.
Yeah, but my dad's one was a parody with class.
Yeah, this is just
Whereas
generated
this is
by
like a computer shit. Why have you replaced it?
If anyone wants bondage attire,
Oh, well, you can dress up. And then
Yes.
he's deaf.
I'm deaf with a.
I've got a mask. I'm going to do a photo shoot. Give it to other ones.
We got one here. Can I ask why do you have bondage attire? That really is Eyes Wide Shut.
For my animation.
Oh, yes.
In the camera club. So just carrying it around as we do.
Right.
I'm not.
That's disgusting.
Okay,
Play your
bad,
sister's. Play your sister's music. Why not?
My
Very
sister's
fast.
music.
Yeah.
You ready?
It was on the
Here
front.
we go.
It's far
Who
too
is it?
highbrow.
Hello and welcome to the New Athens, our first broadcast of Michaelmas term 2020. After the summer break. Welcome to Dan Kolupski and Philip Firsov, some of our experts in residence, as we discuss the great turbulence of our time and how we can emerge from it into a new reality.
Turbulence?
Yes.
You want turbulence?
Well, we can
Oh, Tinane!
we
Ooh
can
la la!
exploit turbulence to
What is turbulence?
we
Is it like turbo drive or what?
we've experienced a global reset. Everybody's back to ground zero, apart from Sweden. Sweden has avoided all of the turbulence so far. Apart from that, the whole world is in chaos.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And we've seen it only this week with the first wave of refugees coming in from New York, of all places.
Yeah, you see, then you look at these small boats that they have to cross the Atlantic with. It's not like
the Mayflower.
Yeah, the Mayflower was a big
So
boat in
we-
comparison.
That was 400 years ago yesterday from Plymouth. It set off from Plymouth 400 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
So yesterday
So now they're
was the
going back in a rubber boat.
400th anniversary of the Mayflower sailing from Plymouth to Cape Cod. And now we have the inverse of that. New York is on fire.
I don't want to be a part of it.
Now we see the New Yorkers arriving in
I don't want to be a part of it at all.
So, what's been on our minds? What's been in the news? There's a new civil war in America. We have countdown to an election there.
It's not the American dream. It's not the American nightmare. It's just not great again.
Yes, it's not great yet. Or yes, not great again.
It's not great again.
It's yet again.
Yeah, yet again.
So yes, the cities are on fire. The forests are on fire. And we can see the people fleeing the cities.
There's a
They're
great
going
sense of
to-
disenchantment with the baseball game because it's just not really different to all the other baseball games that happened in the past. So, you go to this stadium and you've got 30,000 people staring at a ball the size of a cricket ball, with a wooden bat, and people talking about matches in the 1960s. So it's kind of run out of its own steam, and there's really nothing to do in Manhattan except for go to a place called Chelsea and a place called Chinatown,
And it's a place called Soho.
and it's actually cheaper in London. So they've gone back and they've realized that they're a country that's a copy of something else. So it's a photocopy of a photocopy. And the original image has been so much distorted that if you go and ask them why they're having dinner in a copy of Westminster in the House of Lords at Princeton, they will tell you that they drink beer made in America, but they don't know anything about the Houses of Parliament. They have no idea, and they
Sponsored
will
by
say,
Bud Light.
Google it. A country that says Google it,
Yes.
that prepares boys in prep school for games like lacrosse, but doesn't prepare them for a crash course in history. And they think that we have a queen here, and therefore we don't own our right to our freedom. And what Boris is doing right now is showing the world that he has no idea what the hell he's doing, but he's doing it anyway. And if that's not freedom, what is? I mean, is freedom something
Well,
else?
Reagan said, Mr. Khrushchev, tear down this wall.
Yeah.
And we can say tonight, Mr. Hancock, tear down this lockdown. We have a public service corporation gone mad under the stewardship, so-called, of Matt Hancock. He's
Cock.
yeah,
Hand in cock.
Hand in cock.
I have
Yeah.
to watch that
Yeah.
asshole every day at work. Whenever you turn on TV, he's just there.
He's the deputy
I see
head
him at
boy of
work.
the nation.
I see him
Now,
there
chaps.
walking around.
Now,
You've got the
chaps.
opportunity to fucking get him.
No.
Get the sniper rifle out.
Look, this is the days of the English Revolution. What we need is register. I mean, I'm not saying let's kill the king, but you know, the English Revolution happened.
pie at Matt Hancock.
Bum, kill the king. Bum, kill the king.
So,
Hallelujah.
Matt Handincock has gone off his rocker. Has gone off his rocker as the deputy head boy of the nation and has decided that we're all very naughty children and we
The
need to be spanked.
prefect has decided
Yes.
that Boris has not had his porridge today.
But he's not,
This
he's not a school prefect. He's a house prefect because he's just
Yeah.
a brown noser for he's
Yeah,
all
Cameron
he's-
was the
he's a
school
Brexit.
prefect.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
they got
Cameron
rid of
Cameron was the head boy.
Cameron's the head
He's
boy.
not there.
Hancock
only
is
made-
the head boy's
not there.
assistant.
Exactly.
No, he's the
Yeah.
health prefect.
Well, he's
the-
like Gareth to David Brent. You know, he's not the assistant
Yeah,
district
he's
manager.
just to the-
He's just to the district manager.
Okay, let's get back to the point. So America is not great again. Americans are coming back to London, even though they've never been here before. And they already recognise the names of the places because they happen to live in a copy of it. So they get to Chelsea and Chinatown.
Soho. Yes.
Yeah.
So New York has collapsed. There's chaos in the streets. There's been riots. There's been lockdowns. There's been the army deployed.
Joker here.
Rioting. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the Dark Knight.
They deployed the army?
They deployed the army in
Yeah,
the streets.
look, in this place where my friends live. Hi guys. So they live in New Rochelle, and they had the army on the border of New York and state to make sure that people wouldn't leave, and they were there for quite some time. Now they phoned me 2 days ago and said that the army have now left, so New York is not surrounded by an army apparently anymore.
Well, everyone has fled who can, and those who can't have had to make the best of
So
it.
that's like Independence Day.
The
when they
prisons
had
have
the people
disgorged
leaving the streets.
disgorged their prisoners because of so-called lockdown policies. New York is
David,
full of riots,
drive out of here?
fire, and brimstone, and it is the end times. A nation which was so powerful only a couple of months ago is now brought to its knees.
Yeah.
It shows you quite how delicate and fragile our society is, and how we haven't built any anti-fragility into the system to allow us to
The
weather these
insurance
storms.
companies took all the money.
Exactly. AIG and Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac. Freddie Mac and Fannie. Freddie
Did you
Mac
say
and
something
Fannie
about death? Did you say something about?
Mae. Oh no! It's the fourth horseman of the apocalypse.
Drunk toss. Introduce
Yeah.
yourself. Drunk toss.
Hello, Lorenzo. How are you?
Do you mean toffee, or do you mean like
Toffee
Toblerone,
nosed,
or
yes.
what?
So
Who's
our
Who is
cities
this
are-
someone?
Drunk toss.
Can you actually introduce yourself?
So I get on camera,
Our-
I don't
our-
follow
Yeah.
the
You should get on
system.
camera instead of me.
Yes.
Impressive.
yes, come.
So I gave up a long time ago because I
Okay.
can't bother to follow the statistics anymore. Every day they're changing.
What is life but statistics?
And
Get
they're
the fuck on
not
camera.
true. What?
Get on camera.
Yeah, get in the
Okay,
seat.
maybe I should
Get in
have
the shot.
a double.
Come to it.
Double. Like,
Yeah.
amongst it.
What do you mean drunk toffs? Do you think I drunk that bottle of Budweiser?
The whole thing all to himself.
Yeah, look here now. Now look you here. I'll rend an oak and set thee in its peggy
And there we go.
entrails.
We have a reflection.
Till
in the
thou hast
reflection.
howled
in the
away
reflection.
12 winters.
We have a funny.
So, Catch It Can,
yes.
artists, Bunny Suprema, Katya and Philip have made bunnies, bunny sculptures, bunny edifices, great armies of bunnies together, and they're now marching on downtown Manhattan. Hello, Kevin. So Track and Trace is the Chinese social credit system, and we're seeing it come to this country. What you say when you go into a bar or a restaurant is you say, "I don't have a smartphone," and then you can't scan their QR code,
and then you can't come in.
log on to their website, and you're seeing now this crunching down of the smartphone as the only mechanism to become a citizen, this universal passport, where you've got to have a smartphone to get into society. Otherwise, you're shut out. And so this is the Chinese social credit system coming to us through the track and trace system, which of course has failed. We're living in a kind of topsy-turvy land. We've been looking tonight at Baron Munchausen and topsy-turvydom.
Munchausen's disease.
And we found that this global reset, which we're all experiencing, is pushing us towards how do we accelerate out of the crisis? How do we accelerate?
Well, they've stopped the clock. So we were just talking about Bergman's film Wild Strawberries.
Oh, Smolton's Thriller.
Whereas a large clock face with no hands on it.
Like Dali, we can.
And unlike a melted clock, it's just a static circular clock face. The hands have been taken away, which is intervention, and it means that time has stopped in a very deadpan illustrative image. And I think the idea of, as you say, reset or restart,
yes,
after a lockdown, which has been enforced upon us, is
the greatest violation of civil liberties since slavery. Like, we essentially experienced slavery. We're now slaves of the government, right? They can tell us where we go, where we can't go.
It's in charge. It's not even a government. It's a global agreement between different governments, and those different governments are run by someone who is obviously over them, overruling them.
Exactly. They're middle managers
because one government can't decide what the other government is doing, which is why different governments are behaving differently. You get a list of countries now where you can go and you can't go with quarantine or without, and that is all being managed by a much larger corporation.
Yes. So we featured on the show
come on the show and tell us.
Yes, come. We'll fight, whether it's George Soros or Bill Gates, whose father died yesterday, who was part of the belly of the beast. What we can see is that we showed on the show a couple of months ago a video call, kind of Zoom call, between all of the global leaders, chaired by the EU president, the new German EU president. I can't remember her name now. She's like this horsewoman from Germany. Anyway, so she was chairing this call. Van der Leyden, that's it, Van der Leyden. And she was chairing this call of all the leaders, and they'd been given a script, like national leaders from Estonia, from Germany, from all over the world, from Brazil, from the Far East, and they'd all been given a script about how they must encourage lockdown and masking, social distancing, compulsory vaccines, and punish
the culprits.
Yes, exactly.
Make them dig the grave.
It was like a hostage sequence. There were 15 different leaders, and they all were using the same script
protocol.
It was a hostage scenario, and they were middle managers given these scripts to say. And you're right, there is an overarching global governance structure, which we can see now.
Yeah, and if you don't behave, you get poisoned with Novichok. Like Mr. Novichok. You can go to Novikov and you can order a Novichok
cocktail.
Or you go to your hotel room. According to CNN, you go to your hotel room and the water is already radioactive.
From the taps?
No,
or in the bottle?
In the bottle.
Ah.
So you've got to be enough of a thief to drink the bottled water anyway.
Yeah, or just drink it from the tap, like they do in Iceland.
Yeah,
that's all clean.
That's clean water. So there's no radioactivity in Iceland, is there? Unless there's a small Russian base there, maybe.
So you spent some time in Iceland.
Yeah.
You were in the Blue Lagoons and so on.
Yeah, not just because that would be a fortune, like going to the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, did they charge a great deal for you to
yeah, it's so over touristic and people having
sex
and coming to the Blue Lagoon. Probably not the best. I'd say the best way to spend the whole month. But yeah, I traveled a bit. I'm going back to Sniper's Nest Peninsula in October
Okay.
to a residency, and they just need to do that swab test, which is really freaking me out.
What they're shoving up your face.
Yeah, like I remember that associated with my Soviet childhood rather than like being in London nowadays.
What, because in Almaty they gave you a large apple to taste in the airport?
No, but like
With
every
the
time I
transparent-
feel they put the Q-tip up my nose, so it's like my traumatic Soviet childhood coming back.
Marganцовка зеленка.
Yeah, we saw your exhibit the other day at Cyrus's at Aqua 7 over in Dawson Junction on Balls Pond Road.
Mhm.
Very good bar. And
Aqua on balls.
Aqua on balls. Yes. And yeah, we saw your pictures of kind of Soviet distress, seeing the TV, the MTV,
And
the
the
only thing, the wallpaper,
Yeah.
the
Radioactive wallpaper.
radioactive wallpaper. As the only thing you could, like the only visual stimulation you get in darkest Soviet Kazakhstan. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I know. It wasn't supposed to be that pessimistic. It's actually like quite mesmerizing as a child to look at all the pattern and get lost in it without having the ideology at the back of your mind.
Like the yellow
Visual
wallpaper. what was
pleasure,
that?
like Laura Mulvey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you go mad looking.
Well,
at
I
the
did,
wallpaper.
especially because my wallpaper was in a flat opposite the Tushino aerodrome in Moscow, where they have the air parade. So they'd have like Russian helicopters and squadrons of MiGs flying just above every summer. I'd be staring at this wallpaper. I could hear the helicopters like in Apocalypse Now, just beyond the balcony. And sort
got
of,
the most joyful
yeah. Every time you look out the window, you see this bloody MiG flying over your head, and the whole, any glass of water shaking and falling off the kitchen table because of the thundering engines.
Was this where your grandfather flew from?
No, he didn't fly there at all.
I've got one as well.
Tushinsky Airport is a Moscow airport for military exercises.
Ah,
Yeah.
and now we have Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of Kubrick
So we live in St Albans.
next to Chilbrickbury, where he
Yeah.
was based.
Oh, might as well wear mine then.
Yeah,
There we go.
Chilbrickbury Manor, which
You
had
can have the
an art
bondage to
fair
Lorenzo
every
and
summer.
Owen.
And it's an 18th century Palladian villa on the edge of St Albans. And it's actually as big as the Earl of St Albans
Oh, the
building,
yes,
which is called, what is down Long Drive?
Gorhambury.
Gorhambury. So there's Chilbrickbury and Gorhambury.
So Gorhambury has colonized a Roman amphitheater, and so they keep the Gorhambury estate, which was the home of Francis Bacon, then keeps inside its borders this Roman amphitheater, which is everybody's patrimony.
But it belongs to the estate of the Earl.
They've captured it and kept it for themselves. So we can see this property guardianship. This brings us on to one of the themes of this evening in this Rule of Six show. So on Monday we did a survey of the commercial property in Notting Hill and
it was a walking
Kensington.
tour of failure.
Yes, exactly. We had found over 200 buildings, which had been commercial properties, which had been abandoned or dying, from pubs to banks to gold vaults to Salvation Army halls to theatres to the headquarters of All Saints, a massive compound of both shop,
With those
warehouse,
sewing machines.
and Singer sewing machines in the windows.
The only people that own their property are the antique shops, because they've got so many millions of quid's
Alfies.
worth of stuff in their house that they can't afford to rent their premises just in case the landlord might come up with a plan to steal the valuables.
So we did a survey of Ken High Street up through Ken Church Street in Kensington
We found over 150 empty
to
buildings.
Notting Hill Gate, then Pembridge Road, up
So
Portobello Road.
squatters, put Section 6 on there because they're commercial property. They're not residential.
So looking at the commercial property in the
Section 6,
Portobello
Church
area,
Street in Portobello.
there's a massive collapse in the. We can get you on the Wi-Fi. Actually.
We can,
Oh, you don't have mine.
they're big enough to have a street psytrance rave in and out of doors.
So
we
there's
can
a
get
bizarre-
Don down
there's
there
now-
with his
There's now a bazaar. There's now a bazaar in Portobello because the streets have been colonized by shopkeepers, and the buildings are actually locked, many of them. And so what we're seeing is like this moving out of doors into a kind of more bazaar format, and the buildings are being shut away by the owners that are still there. So what we can see is a need for regeneration. What we can see is
what's the solution? Either you're going to have squatted streets, or you can have property guardian companies preventing that and making a commercial venture on how to reuse these buildings for a purpose.
We featured that on the show before. We discussed in detail with Philip his experience of property guardianships, of squats and anti-squats, and over years of
matter and antimatter.
Over years of looking at London commercial property and London residential property, and those properties which are abandoned, which are very few, right? Few large properties get abandoned, but now we have 200 in a single district. And so we can see that this is a massive collapse.
That means that it's not doubled, it's not tripled. If there was 100,000 empty properties in the UK when I started squatting 10 years, and that means now there's probably close to 1 million.
Well, you should try Parsons Green as well. There are lots of furniture shops which went bankrupt.
But this is particularly in the commercial sector, so nobody's going away from their houses unless they're dead, obviously. But that means that there is 100,000 in 2010, and then in 2019 it was all going about the same. You know, they'd restricted squatters' laws to non-residential. They had, people occupying warehouses, and they were occupying buildings of no particular use, like ex halls of residence, ex offices, ex job centers, ex pubs, buildings that are set up for demolition. Now we're looking at a law that prevents businesses from functioning. So buildings that would have been prime real estate for commercial use on the most expensive and fashionable tourist
districts,
attractions,
the streets, yes,
which are now all up for grabs. Up for grabs for who and within what restrictions and what kind of use. I mean, there are all these young people that want to get back into business, and maybe in a way, a lot of the businesses that have failed had been taken over by franchises. You had these big companies like Tesco's moving in and destroying all the little shops and having franchises. Paul's Bakery had, all these companies that have gone bust immediately. Yeah. So
yes. So
big chains have gone bust.
We can see that there's a consolidation of a few chains that still exist, Robert Dyas or Tesco or Sainsbury's or Marks and Spencer's that still have
these large
presence.
Marketing companies.
But then there's a total collapse of all independent commercial
all
activity.
All the small businesses that have had to fold either under a franchise, but now they've also had to fold because of the fact that they can't sustain themselves within the restrictions. So the companies that still work are being buttressed by some funds, emergency funds, things like that. But they're also very volatile. You've got big companies like Thomas Cook, completely failed.
Yes.
You were saying.
So that
companies that you would have recognised on the high street.
What we can see is this private equity breaking up of the assets. So if you take a company like Thomas Cook, Theresa May's government, while it was collapsing, didn't give it a bridging loan, and now actually it was being refloated as a Chinese tourist agency for Chinese tourists to come out of China and into the West, and that was a means to keep it going and keep all these people employed. But in the end, it failed because the government wouldn't support it and allow the Chinese to take on this concern. So all the bits then get split up by private equity. So the airplanes go to one buyer. The shops, the Thomas Cook shops on the high street go to another travel agent. The resorts go to another buyer. The assets which were part of a going concern.
A nation of shopkeepers. A nation of shopkeepers that was stopped. And Napoleon may have been saying that with a jest, but it was the fact that it was a nation of shopkeepers that gave that success. And the fact that the shopkeepers can't continue to exist anymore means that we're no longer a nation and we're no longer shopkeepers.
Yes, so now a shop means an account on Amazon, plugging into the Amazon delivery infrastructure, which is better than the post. better than the USPS, better than the
So
Royal
there's
Mail.
no power to the individual, basically.
And
Power is
so when
taken
you said,
away.
here he is,
By death.
death, destroyer of worlds.
No power to the individual.
We have an interlude from Death, Destroyer of Worlds. Is it
Johnny
Robert?
Morris says,
Is it
he's
Robert
a
Oppenheimer?
shopkeeper.
He's a shopkeeper.
Yeah.
So what's
and
the experience of the shopkeeper?
Johnny, Lorenzo, or he's calling you Alfonso.
Alfonso, that's very good.
So Lorenzo, ask Johnny Morris what he does.
Yeah.
So Johnny Morris, tell us about
into that camera.
Johnny Morris. Tell us about your experience as a shopkeeper now. Have you survived? Has your business survived? Are you
Divorced or
continuing
beheaded?
trader? Yeah, divorced, beheaded, survived, divorced, beheaded, died. And it seems everywhere in Portobello has died. And so now we need to work out how to revive that area, because all these New Yorkers are coming, all the Hong Kongers will be coming as British overseas nationals, and we need to
have
have
you say, "I beg your pardon, I'm not dead and I'm not going anywhere."
and we need to find a purpose for this city, so that they can then arrive to an existing economy rather than arrive to another dead zone.
But the advantage is, as an artist, you can have a free stall at Portobello, so that's kind of never heard of. You usually pay like £70 for the day, but now you can pretty much get a stall for free because they basically don't.
Yes. So we've had this economic inversion, and we've been looking at this in response to all this property coming available. So
Johnny Morris says he's not dead and he's not going anywhere.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
What is your shop and where is it, Johnny?
Camera two.
Johnny, what is your shop and where is it and what does it sell? What can we find there?
He used to run a dildo store.
It's always lucrative.
Yes, no, I mean, it's never.
So-
Yes, it's.
I wandered lonely as a cloud,
It's probably
and
more
suddenly I
Ohio
came upon a
available.
dildo.
Well, not once I
Shop.
saw a crowd, a host of
Probably all
golden
sold out. At this
Dildo.
point.
dildo.
Phil.
Well, there's Signor Dildo. Have you read Signor Dildo by
Mr. Dildo.
yes,
Don Juan.
Signor Dildo.
So, what do you think of the new 5-person rule?
Oh,
The new
well,
restriction?
this is a workplace, so we can have as many people as we like here, according to the
Key workers exemption.
yes,
I
we're a
mean-
key worker exemption as the free press.
What is your profession?
Me. I can't tell who you address. Artist, multimedia, post-internet, freelance artist that doesn't want to capitalize herself in any box.
By Rochester, Signor Dildo. You ladies of merry England who have been to kiss the Duchess's hand, pray, did you not lately observe in the show a noble Italian called Signor Dildo? This Signor was one of the Duchess's train and helped to conduct her over the main. But now she cries out, to the Duke I will go, I have no more need of Signor Dildo. At the sign of the cross in St. James's Street, when next you go thither to make yourselves sweet by buying of powder, gloves, essence or so, you may chance to get a sight of Signor Dildo. You would take him at first for no person of note, because he appears in a plain leather coat. But when you his virtuous abilities know, you'll fall down and worship Signor Dildo. My Lady Southesk, heaven prosper her fort, first clothed him in satin, then brought him to court. But his head in the circle he scarcely doth show, so modest a youth was Signor Dildo. The good Lady Suffolk, thinking no harm had got this poor stranger, hid under her arm. Lady Betty by chance came the secret to know, and from her own mother stole Signor Dildo. The Countess of Falmouth, whom people tell her footmen wear shirts of a guinea an hour, might save that expense if she did know how lusty a swinger is Signor Dildo. By the help of this gallant, the Countess of Rafe against the fierce Harris preserved herself safe. She stifled him almost beneath her pillow, so closely she embraced Signor Dildo. The pattern of virtue, her Grace of Cleveland, has swallowed more pricks than the ocean has sand, but by rubbing and scrubbing so wide does it grow, it is fit for just nothing but Signor Dildo. Our dainty fine duchesses have got a trick to dote on a fool for the sake of his prick. The fops were undone, did their graces but know the discretion and vigour of Signor Dildo. The Duchess of Modena though she looks so high, with such a gallant, is contented to lie, and for fear that the English her secret should know, for her gentleman usher took Signor Dildo. The Countess of the Cockpit, who knows not her name, she's famous in the story for killing a dame. When all her old lovers forsake her, I trow, she'll then be contented with Signor Dildo. Red Howard, Red Shelton, and Temple so tall, complain of his absence so long from Whitehall. Signor Barnard has promised a journey to go and bring back his countrymen. Signor Dildo. St. Albans, with wrinkles and smiles in his face, whose kindness is strange becomes his high place. In his coach and 6 horses is gone to Burgo to take the fresh air with Signor Dildo. Were this Signor but known to the sitters and fops, he'd keep their fine wives from the foreman of their shops. But the rascals deserve their horns should still grow for burning the Pope and his nephew Dildo. Tom Killigrew's wife, that Holland's fine flower, at the sight of this Signor did fart and belch sour, and her Dutch breeding the further to show, says, "Welcome to England, Mynheer van Dildo." He civilly came to the cockpit one night and proffered his service to fair Madam Knight. Quoth she, "I intrigue with Captain Catso, your nose in mine arse, Signor Dildo." This Signor is sound, safe, ready, and dumb, as ever was a candle, carrot, or thumb. Then away with these nasty devices, and show you how you rate the just merit of Signor Dildo. Count Catso, who carries his nose very high, in passion he swore his rival should die, then shut himself up to let the world know flesh and blood could not bear it from Signor Dildo. A rabble of pricks who were welcome before, now finding the porter denied them the door, maliciously waited his coming below, and inhumanly fell on Signor Dildo. Nigh wearied out, the poor stranger did fly, and along the Pall Mall they followed full cry. The women, concerned from every window, cried, "For heaven's sake, save Signor Dildo." The good Lady Sanders burst into a laughter to see how the bollocks came wobbling after, and had not their weight retarded the foe. Indeed, 'tad gone hard with Signor Dildo.
Pale Male.
Please
Yes.
tell me you were
So that was 17th century bawdy poetry by the Earl of Rochester, John Wilmot, and he was well known as a lady's lover in the court in London. And he wrote a poem about himself as a dildo. Italian. So he invented the term of his being a dildo carried under the arm of the Duchess and sneaked into court.
He didn't invent the word dildo.
No. So he's characterizing himself as an Italian stallion, in the form of a man who in the end gets
Casanova.
We've got some more comments.
Yes.
It says, as long as this isn't an animal house party and there's no hot tub, it's not a reportable offence, according to Boris. And it's a workplace and all grouse shoots, so it's fine. And then Johnny Morris says,
clearly with this
really committed to that poem.
But it's only
And
4
the rename
people.
of
What's
this
the
show should
problem?
be a
Rabble of pricks.
There we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rum, sodomy, and the lash. So
This is not the Navy.
It's very naughty. Cool.
So what can you see there? Like, London has always been a happening place and full of hijinks and
we've had the plague before and
yes.
the fire.
Yes, so he was there then in Charles II's time,
Yeah.
and they had a fire and a plague.
London burning.
Yes, we have
It's a cotton ball shaped lemon.
That's very talented.
orange. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Many
a
things.
term of art.
Where do you get your talents from?
Like that banana
Have you got
display.
have you got mustard
Miami
on your
basil.
face? Oh, and it's gold from the mask.
I always put gold on kits and things at house parties.
This is like
and
the
I like to give
Miami
But now
basil.
you got mustard.
Miami
Yeah.
basil in London.
anybody who wants a house party
Yeah, I think I've
entertainer
had
with
enough.
gold leaf for gilding purposes, we
Yes.
aim to please.
Yes.
We also do gold rabbits with
Yeah.
extended genitalia. And,
Signor dildo attached.
and
yes.
breasts as well.
yes, much larger breasts than.
So,
than
we were
The
looking-
opposite, you've forgotten.
Claim the other day, all these people taking 14 days and being forced to quarantine. We worked out that 14 days at £10 an hour of stolen time is £3,360. if you have to quarantine for 14 days for having traveled, send your invoice to Her Majesty's Exchequer for £3,360. That's £10 an hour. The theft of time, that's only just over minimum wage, but of course it's 24 hours over the 14 days. That's £3,360. If you've had to quarantine yourself, having your time stolen, contribute to this quantitative easing distribution of monies, because what we've seen is with this new economic policy is that money has been detached from capital. Now we can choose where money goes, what's useful. It used to be that, we can only spend money on what the capital says we can spend it on, but now we can choose whether it's new businesses, whether it's businesses surviving, whether it's people getting furloughed. We can choose where the money needs to go.
We couldn't have the history teachers coming in because they were furloughed, because they went to see their parents in Russia. So I covered history for 2 weeks, but my art group shrunk into nearly 1 or 2 people. So I lost my job like yesterday. And then at the same time, I was doing another job as a history teacher, covering for history teachers who were not being paid. So I was being paid, I will be paid their money for covering for them. So, that's kind of compensation. But actually, I get, made redundant as a consequence of, people not coming back to these schools.
So, Katya, you mentioned that there was a kind of inversion of the economy, that you could get stalls now for free, which before you had to pay rent for. So now we're seeing a collapse in the rental market because there's such an oversaturation of space. And so what we're seeing is a moment where before you'd have paid for a lease on a commercial property, but now you can be a guardian of that property and you can sell a service back to the owner. So instead of being a pay point for you paying the owner of the property, they can now pay you to actually look after it because it's been empty. 200 properties alone empty in this sort of Portobello, Notting Hill, Kensington, High Street Kensington area.
They can pay you and they can use your services, but also they can make sure that nobody else breaks into the building. So you're not only a guardian, but you're also you're bringing value to the property, and you're also the security of that property.
Kind of like homestay or home swap or a similar service.
Well, so what we're engineering now is live work spaces. So if you look at the sometime success of WeWork and similar co-working spaces, what you saw there was startups and office space and new businesses renting little glass boxes in an office building with shared facilities. What you see with the guardianship schemes is residential occupation of guardians of these derelict buildings between when they're abandoned and when they'll be redeveloped, as Philip said, demolished. And so there's this moment of time where
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit. Dan's driving. So what you can see now is a combination of live and work. So you have businesses and living in these
and dying.
Commercial units.
There's also live die and
Very lucrative service.
not work and be looking for work, be made redundant. So there's live work, there's die.
Advertise your art piece.
Be
that'll be worth
Nelken original.
nothing ever.
It won't go on the art chain.
And add value to the property.
So we're no longer a nation of shopkeepers.
I'm not a man hater anymore. I converted today.
What did you convert from?
Man hater to neutral territory.
You're now
I'm
neutral.
neutralizing
like
my brain. My third eye is being neutralized
by the orange peel.
Yeah,
like
it's like
Switzerland.
DMT, but
Yeah.
less unhealthy.
Well, we're actually
Yeah.
absorbed through the third
So
eye.
if we look at the history of cities that went bust before,
Yes.
the most commonly known one is Naples.
Yes. The Kings and the Two Sicilies. So Normans went to Londinium. They went to London with Guillaume de Bataille, William the Conqueror, and William the Bastard, and he conquered London. And then the other set of Normans, who were also bastards, came down and they conquered Sicily and Naples.
So there's a castle there called Masciangevino, which is the older castle, and then there's another castle called Sant'Elmo.
Oh yes, and Elmo is fire.
Which is fantastic because there's the story of the egg which Pushkin recycled with the needle inside, which originates in the Castel dell'Ovo. But San Elmo is the castle on the hill, and that's the most powerful castle. The point is that Naples was abandoned because they were feared of having a second Pompeii. And the center of town, which was built up by Bourbon aristos, huge funds and big Baroque palaces, were suddenly occupied by the people who didn't have the money to afford to escape the city. All the rich people left by ship from the port of Naples, and the people that
during the plague
stayed behind. No, this is during the volcanic eruptions that put the city center at risk in the 1800s, in the 1900s. It happened on several occasions.
There was a plague when the French king invaded. It came down.
I mean, the city's gone through a lot of cataclysmic things, but it was particularly the fear of the eruption that led to then the populace, the sort of the people from the Campagna outside coming in and creating communal flats in lavish Baroque palaces and staying there up until today.
Parallel to nowadays.
There's a first of all the parallel that immediately comes to my mind is how Communist Party forced people to live in communal flats in Russia, and you've got books like The Dog's Heart, which shows this in a great film where you suddenly Professor Preobrazhensky, Filip Filipovich Preobrazhensky, is forced to have this dog living with him, and he does then a transplant. But what going back to Naples is that what's happened is suddenly this has happened in London, where the center of town is dead, and it's going to be people who take that opportunity to then reuse, re-squat, and not go away. So if they're not going away, they're going to be there for hundreds of years.
So here,
result.
So here at the New Athens, we've been studying the Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission that was published just before the lockdown in February, and that was chaired by Roger Scruton, who died in February of cancer, not of coronavirus. He was an academic. He was a professor of aesthetics and history and architecture, and he was chairing the Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission. And what they said was that cities need regeneration with beautiful classical architecture on a human scale, which allow people to enjoy their surroundings. And so that's not been implemented because there was a lockdown. So we're just on the point of having this commission to build beautiful, classical, democratically governed cities. And this was coming out of the government. And so that's now been lost, not only because of the lockdown, but also because its chairman, Roger Scruton, died in February. And so now we're picking up his banner. But Philip mentioned something very interesting. In the analysis of the Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission, they looked at what kinds of buildings do people really attach themselves to, and what kind of buildings really survive. You'll find this really interesting. So the key note that they mentioned with the Building Better, Building Beautiful Commission,
I think you should get
was
spotlight.
buildings which change use over the centuries. Philip, just what you said. So buildings that change use over the centuries, so which are abandoned for one use, but they're not demolished, they're then changed use. So maybe from commercial to residential, or from a warehouse to residential. You can see
from a hippodrome.
Yes, people now.
Philippopolis.
So people now live in mews houses, which were garages to park your car, which was your horse.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So people live in multi-million pound mews houses. These are they're garages where the horses would shit, so your car would excrete its waste when you were transporting yourself. And so these are now better built than new buildings. So people pay a premium to live in horse boxes. They also live in granaries. So if you go down to Docklands, you see all the warehouse, Victorian and 18th century and so on, warehouses, and people pay premiums to live in flats in warehouses because they keep cool in summer and warm in winter to keep the grain and other perishable products without refrigeration, like still preserved throughout the year. And so what the Scruton Commission said is we've got to look at what is it about these buildings that survive. They're not demolished, that different people take them over for different purposes over time. And so those are the kinds of buildings which we need to build, the kinds of buildings which can be converted from an office to a shop to a house to a public building,
or demolished and replaced by a new building.
I thought that was an interesting metric of what a good building is. A building that can change its function.
But the kind of buildings that would have had a Muse, the kind of 200 years ago, you build a building with Muse because you're building it for
garages for your horse.
But who can afford a horse 200 years ago?
A rich guy.
Exactly. So they're going to build expensive buildings for people who can afford them, and they're the ones that are going to last. What I reckon is that people have always lived in cheap houses are for poor people, and it's like poor people are going to live in cheaper accommodation because that's poor. We're talking about financially poor means that you can't afford stuff, so and the cheaper stuff isn't going to be built as well, and it's going to collapse, and then it's going to be replaced. So this is a cheap building that we're in here, but it's very nice. It won't be here in 100 years' time.
Yes,
it'll be nice. It'll be nice for a couple of decades, and then it will probably start being pretty ropey. But
like the one next door.
Yeah. I mean, but even though the equivalent of this that was built in the 50s was perfectly livable and a better living machine than a old house that had been converted into flats. Something that's purpose built cheaply is better than something that is repurposed.
That's not what the commission found. What the commission found was that people love buildings that can change use, and the fact that they can change use means it has this value in it, which means that it's if you go to a modern public library, it would be hard to live in a modern public library. It would be hard to convert it out.
But the Ephesus library.
Yeah, exactly. But the Ephesus library can turn into anything. So the change of function, the ability for it to change function, is where the value lies.
So is that design? Is that ability to change function built into the design?
It never intended. It was never a warehouse for grain that's also could be a flat one.
Is it a result of it, like good classical design, like the Vitruvian Man? Is that what it all goes back to?
Building materials that can breathe.
The book.
Building materials that
naked dude in a wheel. That's what I'm talking about.
The Leonardo, but Vitruvius also. The Vitruvian Man was Leonardo's interpretation of squaring the circle of Vitruvius, and Vitruvius was a Roman architect who wrote the original treatise on architecture.
It's before Palladius.
It has sacred geometry as well.
And so, yes, absolutely, it's coming out of Egypt, and coming out of the Catholics, and so on.
And he was vitrified in a vitrine.
Yes, that's actually a Vitruvian commentary.
Yes.
You heard it here first, people. You heard it.
How was he fed? How were his victuals? Was he fed well?
He's an
I'm not
everything
Catholic.
appropriate to the David house.
Buildings that can change function have this ability to survive long term, and people like them.
That's why the pyramids have been around for so long.
Yes.
What were they built for?
They were built
States of consciousness.
as a power
It's
station.
supposed to feel something when you see that a triangle because it's supposed to stimulate different parts of the same geometry in the body.
Oh right.
No, there's no tomb.
Because you're
There's no tomb in the
I
pyramids.
guess you're a sphere in the sphere.
There was never a king or a queen found. They called them a king and queen's chamber to throw you off the scent. There was never a king or a queen in the king.
Like what are those solids?
They were a power station.
Shapes. What are the geometric shapes? The solids. What are they called?
Platonic.
Platonic solids. Yes.
Like
Icosahedrons.
Is a
Yes.
pyramid a platonic solid?
It's
And a
half
cube.
of one.
Yes.
Oh, it's a rhombus
It's
diamond.
if you took
The
that
rhomboid.
pyramid,
Yeah.
you could, if you times it by 2,
Upside down.
it would be a cube.
Right. Okay.
So it's a slice of a cube.
And a cube fits inside a Buckminster Fuller ball, a Bucky ball. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Buckminster Fullerene, where they
That's
actually
right, yeah.
discovered.
Is that a
that-
platonic solid?
So yeah, that's a platonic solid, but
It's
it
not
also they
hexahedron.
discovered it in the world as well.
It's hexahedron.
No, it's like a bigger hadron. It's bigger than. It's like
What, the Buckminster Fuller thing?
Can I
yeah.
say a final note about my
Oh,
archers
right,
because I don't
right.
know how long I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Let's talk about no. Yeah.
It's a bit of self-publicity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Um,
We haven't introduced you or what you're about.
Well, I'm Katya Khan. I'm a multimedia post-internet artist. I'm interested in the themes of utopia, nostalgia, childhood, some erotic elements which are present in everything, I guess.
Yeah.
And bunnies. Bunnies. It's all about the bunnies.
Right.
Yeah, so I've got some art shows coming up. These lovely gentlemen attended my Aqua 7 show. I had one at Soho Review, which went quite well this summer.
Oh yes, how is India?
Yes, very well. Thank you. I've heard it's closing for a limited time frame, but it will reopen again. That was very good. Spread between two venues on Barrack Street on the theme of lockdown. So I presented my Soviet TV series because that's what you do. You trip on wallpaper and watch MTV and Netflix as you do.
Yes.
during
The
the
trip on wallpaper.
Yeah, I mean,
So the crazy
psychedelics
patterned
don't have to
wallpaper.
be involved, but as a child, I remember tripping on the wallpaper because there was just so many patterns.
Oh,
you could
right.
just get lost.
Tessellation tripping.
Right.
Oh, right.
Guy. Yeah.
Yeah, or even the more basic ones. So all the lovely Eastern
Ornament.
European gentlemen will relate to me, I guess. Jay with vinyl and a tarot card reader for those who are uncertain about their future. And if you need to get over someone or
Vacas in
something, you
Templo.
can even get a sound healing with Miss Fan too downstairs. And I
Yes.
Sound
tested it
healing
on
with what?
myself. This lady called Fan
Oh, right.
too. I know
Okay.
it sounds like I made it
Oh,
up,
right.
but
Right.
it,
Okay.
yeah.
Two.
Yeah, she did one with me because I had to get over
And she
my
does
lockdown.
sonic healing.
Yeah, with the presence of smells and kind of like multi-sensory healing and ocean drums as well.
Oh, right.
She's thinking of using CBD oil as well
All
to be
right.
confirmed.
Right. Oh, that sounds like quite an immersive experience.
Yeah, it
Crikey.
was.
Train
Did it recent-
spotting.
It's a pun that I just missed.
So what have you?
Excuse my slowness.
So what have you been doing with your time? Have you been making a lot of art, or have you been wondering how to bounce back from the global reset? What's been occupying your mind?
Yeah. Well, I came back from Iceland in February.
Mhm.
Well, where is this going to be shown? Because I have a funny story, but I don't know. what
Yeah,
to
it's fine.
share.
It's on the
It's
YouTube
public,
channel
it's
of
as
New
if you're-
Athens.
Don't
I
say
don't know.
anything that you don't want recorded in
It's too-
perpetuity.
But I'm
Yeah,
kind of
that's the-
preferring the comic element.
Yeah,
to
good. Yeah, good.
Okay,
That's
fine. I'll just I
to
might
tell-
as well just
tell-
go
tell-
into.
tell the
So
story.
yeah, no, it was quite productive because I did 300 frames of my animation, which
Yes.
is 2D, so it's a lot of kind of
drawing each
constantly.
frame.
You have to be
Yeah.
quite OCD. But in the intervals, I hung out with this kind of slightly weird person who stalked me for a year on Facebook, looked at all my stories. Then they invited me to their flat on Queensgate. I ended up doing DMT with them and your Bitcoin friend.
Oh yes.
I just
yes.
thought that was kind of one of my highlights. And no, it was entertaining, but in the end, they ended up calling me a Chinese washerwoman, North Korean dissident, Russian bitch in the course of 1 month, which I thought was quite entertaining. and then they said, if you think this is racism, then you haven't witnessed real racism. After that, they said that, art is kind of bullshit and blah, blah, blah. Like, why are you doing your bullshit art? So that was kind of
The stalker
slightly
said
comical. Yeah. So I just thought it's kind of
that.
like,
Did you ask them why they were stalking you?
well, basically, they were like, if you agree to go to the park and do DMT with me, obviously you enjoyed being stalked, more or less was their argument. Because I thought it was some old dude stalking me, and I was like, obviously not interested. But then I looked at the picture and it was like, okay, I might get laid with him once because I'm so bored. But I don't know, it's just a bit kind of incongruous to stalk someone for that amount of time, but then insult them. Then I just left without saying goodbye because I just had
So
enough.
you've got to be careful because the next thing you know, they're going to throttle you and you find yourself found dead.
That's what Phil would do.
I think I'm the one who traumatized them, not the opposite.
That's,
but
a good way to
they-
turn it
they
around.
do-
That's the way to turn
Like
it around.
I fucked with their pineal gland, which is the best way to traumatize.
But they
people.
study
right.
these stalkers. They're obsessed with a woman, and then they often follow them around, and then they basically end up killing them.
No, but when I say stalk, I kind of mean cyber stalk, like just look at innocent.
Well, what's the difference?
Well, everyone's stalking
It's the
everyone
psychology,
nowadays,
though.
I guess.
Yeah.
Like it's looking at someone's stories. That story is just.
Probably
didn't
about
notice-
how much effort do you put into it, I suppose. Like the stalkers you put, if you put too much effort into it,
Mm.
that's when it becomes problematic. I
Yeah,
reckon.
but I think everyone wants
there's
to seem
a
like
bell
they're-
curve. There's a bell
So,
curve
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's like everybody has a little kind of like everyone gets titillated by looking at people on Facebook. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, and then it's like But if you kind of like
Well, I think I
act on that, that's when it gets. But then you met up with this person.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I forgot.
But yeah, so you met. It was like
I still.
you're like, come on then.
Yeah,
Come on, have a
basically
go if you think you're hard
encouraged
enough.
them.
That's what you said, isn't it? Go and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
Well,
And
basically
you
they were.
you outdid them with their.
I stalked them back.
You
No,
took
but
them on and you.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you won.
Yeah,
You brought.
That's what it sounds like.
I think I
brought down the
stalked them
beast.
psychologically, like I'm in their head, because apparently
Yes.
I'm unforgettable according to their post.
Unforgettable.
Yeah, like French
That's
Montana.
what you are. Like a sound of
there were
love,
other highlights
tender
that I
to
should
me.
stalk. And also that person spent 5 hours a day in the bathtub smoking weed nonstop. I've never met someone who spends that much time doing nothing.
Fully pruned, like fully
Camberwell.
pruned, like from the neck down.
Well, I don't know, chest area,
Yes,
whatever you want
yes.
to call it. So
Um,
then
quite a nice life.
I had some, I did some engaged in some foreplay, and they said there must be a safe word. They didn't want to even be tied down. I'm like, dude, I'm obviously not as strong as you. Like, what do you have to lose? And they're like, oh no, we didn't do any safe word. And I'm like, dude, like, what's gonna happen to you? I'm not gonna like cut your head off.
You're not a
You never
malevolent.
know.
You're not a
guess.
malevolent figure.
But there were
Gotcha.
lots of entertaining incidents I could go on. Then they had these lists on their bathtub, like one must be grateful, one must do this, one must do that, and then they like never delivered any of those things. It's like, why write all these things if you never like stick to them?
Aspirations.
Yeah, all these.
No,
things.
so-
You're doing art shows, notwithstanding the difficulty of such organising. And how are you going to deal with the rule of 6 and the new social
Everything's a workplace. Everything's a work.
Um,
You live in a
Yeah.
workplace. Yeah. Register a limited company at your house. Wherever you are, £12 to register a limited company at your house. Then you're in your registered office, and it's a workplace.
yeah.
We're literally working that. This is work. It
Yes.
is work because
We
we're
are
developing
key workers.
intellectual property. But then life is work. You know what does any
Having
It's
an iPhone
fucking
in front of
bullshit.
you is the same as having a camera.
exactly? We're all
And an
building our
encyclopedia.
brands all the time. You know, Dominic Cummings wants us to have a digital future. Well, we're all busy building our brands with our phones 24/7. So
Exactly.
we are already your fucking drones. So don't stop us working for you, you fuck.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. We're always already at work. Erich Fromm talked about this. In the early 20th century, he was a sort of Freudian Marxist psychologist, and he saw coming the kind of marketization of society where instead of being a company man, instead of being a union man, instead of being a laborer, we'd each have our own personal marketing brand, which we'd have to then spend time keeping up
Mhm.
and creating and selling ourselves, selling every service. Whether you see a lot of our friends on onlyfans.com making pornographic images for pocket money, whether you see people on furlough who are taking money from the government and then using it to that and government loan facilities to build their startups. You see that people are constantly having to market themselves. This is what Erich Fromm saw in advance, that we were coming into this reality of constant personal selling, not selling like I'm an auto part worker from Detroit, not selling I'm a shopkeeper, but saying I am a personal brand and I need to market that brand against all the other brands that exist. And there's now 8 billion of them.
Yeah.
Um,
And so, no, go on.
No, basically, like with the 5-person rule, we're just seating everyone in groups of 5, so people basically can't stand anymore. The new rules, you have to be sat if you're at the event.
yes.
So I'm allowed 15, and the organizers allowed 15, but basically things are much easier if you sit at tables. So that's how it works.
I mean, an
Confronting
event.
that
What's the
rule.
purpose of the event?
Well, sales and
Right, it's work.
entertainment. Yeah.
Yes,
I
it's a
mean,
workplace.
it's
It's fucking work. And this is the thing. The thing is,
Workplace
what's his name?
exemption.
Who's the Secretary of Health?
Oh, Matt
Hancock. Matt Hancock is just.
And
It's like I don't understand how you can drop the ball every single time. Do you have no hands and arms? It's like, how do you drop the ball all the time? It's like, yeah, you fucking Hancock. It's like, what's your fucking
hand
problem,
in
Going back to
cock.
the
Hand
beginning
in
of
the-
cock. Yeah, how would that work?
It's like-
hand in cock.
It's just
It's a circular journey to the beginning of our discussion.
a circular
Like
jerk to the beginning.
Equitio Feminine by
So,
Julia Kristeva. The
abandoned
French
buildings.
feminist. It's all about the circular structure and feminist writing.
The
So
sonata
we're
form.
going back to the point where we started.
Yeah.
with the
ABA.
circular writing.
Exposition.
Equitio
Oh, did we
Feminine.
start by
Yeah,
going with Matt Hancock?
handicocked. I
Yes.
just
Right,
thought
okay.
I had a deja vu.
Well,
but I
yeah.
didn't.
Exposition, development, and recapitulation.
Maybe
Yes.
you
There we
should
go.
know, it's a good
So,
combination.
Sonata for
All of that. We did music.
So
thesis.
workplaces. Here we go. Schools and workplaces. So either be educating and educated. So build a school, as we're doing here at the New Athens, and also a workplace. Schools and work. This is from the Independent a couple of days ago, 2 days ago, about this rule of six, slavery. Like, this is slavery. We are now having the greatest violation of our civil liberties in this country since slavery.
But Matt Hancock's implementing it. He's just some bellend who did PPE. He's just some fuckwit. He's like brown noses his way into the cabinet, and he's the guy who's putting this in slavery.
Yes.
It's like he's off. Why
do we have to justify
why are we letting
ourselves?
that happen?
Why do we have free men on the land have to
There's
justify
no
ourselves
He's not even
by
in-
saying
Exactly.
we
Why
saying we're in a
is
school
he
or
allowed to
workplace?
enslave like
Yeah, and also
the mother of all parliaments? Do you know
how
what I
they're
mean?
going to monitor it, as everyone keeps saying? Like,
Well,
what's,
yeah,
the,
it's-
what's the methodology
Right.
for
So
monitoring?
yeah, we shouldn't have to exempt ourselves. We shouldn't have to find exceptions to these rules. But these are the exceptions you can use today and every day following until we overturn this together. Schools and workplaces. Schools and workplaces will continue to operate under existing COVID secure guidelines. The guidelines state that exemptions include work, voluntary and charitable services, registered childcare, and education or training. And supervised activities provided for children, including wraparound care, youth groups, activities, and children's play groups. Fulfilling legal obligations such as attending court or jury service
What
also comes
about
under the
culture?
exemptions.
When
During the press
Lenin
briefing,
heard the word culture, he said, "When I hear the word culture,
I reach for my gun.
revolver."
Eradicate.
So yes, register a £12 business at Company's House, and you can also get some startup
With-
loans, which we'll
with
explain
our
on the
mutual
next
friend.
on the next episode. We'll explain the startup loan scheme. We're taking some of our startups in the acceleration through the startup loan scheme at the moment. That's from the Startup Loans Company. We'll give you an update on that next time.
Jesus,
But how to get
easier
this
for a
loan
rich
facility and
man
how to get £25,000
pass through
up
the
to £100,000
iron
for your business from more government loan facilities for bounce back. But go to companieshouse.gov.uk, found a company in your house, then you are in a workplace, and then you are exempt from the rule of six. Thank you, everybody, and good night. We'll see you very soon.
I'm very much the back, yeah.
Yeah, forever hold your
I'm the
peace,
lobby
man.
guy
Yeah.
here.
You're going to vote.
I'm just the Putin in
I-
the corner.
Whatever these
I made
guys
a
say,
big
I
decision.
tap on the shoulders of the people who matter. And
On the shoulders
get
of
to
giants,
work,
yeah, standing on the shoulders of giants.
Whose studio is
Halupski.
this again?
Oliver's.
Oh.
He's a very
That makes
important
sense.
executive producer.
Makes sense. You've got all the high tech equipment.
So what's your Katya?
Yeah.
So you're from Kazakhstan?
Well, I was born there, but the
In the
question
city of
where I am
apples.
from is part of the lockdown discussion. It's
She's
very
from the city
confusing.
of apples.
I am
because
from
Almaty-
North Korea.
Almaty is the city of apples.
Yeah. Well, my dad is North Korean. He
So
spent
you're not Kazakh. You're
No.
ethnically Korean.
Korean and
Yeah,
Russian.
I mean, in a weird way, I kind of sense you look more Korean, not Kazakh.
So you can see that she's from a dictatorship.
Yeah, from two dictatorships. Because
Very
my mom is
interesting.
basically Russian, Tatar, and Ukrainian. So I guess I'm
right,
as
so
communist as it
you're
gets.
pan-communist.
Yeah, yeah. They should just put a bit of Cuban.
Yeah, but
in
it's
there.
You were
provincial
born-
communism.
So did you grow up in Kazakhstan?
Yeah.
Relaxed. it's not
soon,
real.
soon. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not going to be communist much longer.
Yeah.
So fuck that.
So you were born in Kazakhstan?
Yeah, I was born there. Then I moved to St. Louis in the US when I was 6. Then I moved here when I was 10. But then I traveled around, so my accent got globalized.
Right. Right.
I can do very good Russian accent. I sure you can. You from Odessa, yes?
Yes.
Or you sound very American.
Are we offline or are we
I have
online?
no idea. I
It's
grew up in-
okay. I not mind publicize my performance.
Yeah.
You can call.
I grew up in New York and I moved back to Ukraine when I was 9.
Mm.
And around the back, basically when I was 12, I moved here.
Oh.
So I was between the ages of 9 and 12. I was between the United States
Mhm.
and Ukraine, going to Odessa, Kiev to an international school, back to the U.S., and Odessa, then to boarding school here.
Oh, but you retain American accent. Why?
It's funny how you say that in a Russian accent. I don't know. 'cause
I had
it's
to
just-
ventilate someone.
It's because you don't, like, no offense, but you don't turn on television and know Hollywood actors speak in a British voice.
I not care.
Well,
I'm
they
not
do
the
if
British.
they were older films.
Yes, transatlantic it called.
Yeah, it's just transatlantic. But
No, I think cool to have American accent less offensive. Like British is like always cruel persona is British, you know, the evil witch or some.
yeah, but once you
Chicken.
move to the UK, then you realize like how class, like,
Plays no part in life at all.
well, in their accent it does. It's like a bit like how you know. There's that whole, I don't know, depends.
The Varangian League of Gentlemen.
I mean, like, there's that whole, like, all the regional accents and how all the Northerners are proud of their accent, and the South and how posh it is. And honestly, some Northerners, I don't understand what the fuck. they're
That's
saying.
because they're trying to sound
Go
more
to
like
Newcastle.
Vikings. They
Why
are
I'm on.
Vikings.
Yeah.
Read
Like, I
that.
lived with a few guys from.
Don't forget that Vikings ruled Russia and Britain for 1,000 years. So the Vikings came into Russia in 986 and they left in 1610. The Vikings came into England
Mhm.
about the same time and they were only replaced by the Tudors and Stuarts. Actually, the Tudors are probably Vikings and the Stuarts are probably Vikings as well. So actually, they
Yeah.
weren't replaced until the House of Hanover.
But they are a bit Norwegian as well.
Yeah,
yes.
so Vikings were ruling both Russia and Britain, and the Northerners sound more like the Vikings.
Rurich was by Latvian or whatever.
Yeah, he wasn't
First.
Latvian. He was a Varangian, and he spoke Icelandic apparently.
So is St. Louis in Mississippi?
Yes, I lived for 2 years. Then my mom kicked out, and no, she couldn't get a
Do you
green
speak
card.
Korean as well?
No, unfortunately, I can say kamsamnida, which is thank you, and anisio is hello. So probably same as you guys, because my father not speak North Korean because he lived 1 year in North Pyongyang. So in Kazakhstan, all Koreans speak Russian. So no need, no Korean.
There's a lot of Koreans in Kazakhstan.
There have 1 million Koreans,
Half a million.
approximately. Yes, and many, Uzbekistan, even Ukraine, you have some.
What's
But not
well, you rarely meet them, but what's the story? How did they come? Is Kazakhstan like renowned for having a big Korean minority? Or?
Yes, Uzbekistan more now basically the great Stalin sends them off to the Central Asia because he thought they are spies and they board on train and a bit like the concentration camp, but not as bad, and they get dropped off in the field randomly. But my relative moved in 19th century because North Korea is very close to Russia, so you can walk basically.
Right. So they were like from. The,
What were they doing?
A lot
Like
of-
selling
a lot of
baskets
stuff.
full of berries
Rice,
on the road?
they grow rice before.
Yeah.
But my relative very intellectual. I don't know what they did, maybe teach. But many pick rice because actually they happy that in
Sincere.
Russia you have education access to everyone. But in Korea, I think they had more class structure. So if you not in right caste, you not have education.
you
So
got a
they
spot
all
now.
want education.
You got a mustache now.
I think I do actually. So it might
Yeah.
be accurate.
Okay,
Please not exaggerate.
not remove.
Plastic surgery, please.
Education not for everyone,
Mhm.
not for you, not for me.
Is a Tatar.
One of
dream.
our Russian
Tatar
school
dream.
teachers said, This world was not made for you, kids. That's a
This
great
Olga,
one.
the director.
No, Natasha,
She's still director.
the math teacher.
I think she should just say this world is not for anyone. Give up and pay me money and give up and
Yeah,
fuck off.
exactly. So I now got made redundant because they can't be bothered to bring any kids to my art lessons anymore. After 4 years of
No.
loyal service, I get told they're not needed anymore.
You should be like, I will disclose your secret and what goes on after hours. I will publish it in my
Yeah.
book and all internet will know.
How to rob Russian children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the molestations that goes on behind scene you publish.
Yeah, you will do this mathematics. You will play the piano and you will act in the Pushkin play.
Yeah.
And if you don't act in the Pushkin play, you won't get your A-level results.
Is that what happened to you, Philip?
No, it was the predicted grade speech we had the other day at school. We had A star for every student in the school. It's amazing. It's a record of A stars, even though every year we get A stars for all our students.
For Russian, obviously.
Yeah,
they
it's
start.
for Russian A level.
Now you have the star. Before in
A
my
round of
day,
applause.
in my day, no star.
And then let's
Yeah,
watch
no.
the parade of the Russian army flying above the Kremlin again for Victory Day.
Yes, and go to
Союз нерушимый, да-да-да-да-да.
study Russian at Oxford because it's you don't have to do fuck all to get in
Yeah.
if you're Russian. So what your backstory? You look like you are in private equity, finance, or tech. I right?
Yeah, basically.
Just all three together.
Yeah. I invest in tech.
Oh, okay. So you're hedge fund. And my knowledge very bad. So.
Chops.
So I know you are yellow because you are yellow Chinese.
Like
yeah.
the
Yeah.
song Oasis, no, Coldplay. And I was all yellow.
Yeah.
Na, na,
This
na,
is
na.
yellow fever. Yeah.
Like the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
There was girl who did poster.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
So you're an artist?
Yes, I try.
Can I see your art?
Yes, I show website. What you want? Oh, I have no laptop. I show website. Конечно, да. You can come to art show, have first-hand experience because I want to subvert 5-person rule. So you can be the number 16 person to come to art show. But yes, of course, I
I
can
can
show
see your
this.
loyal girl.
I actually show on the computer better. Are we still recording?
Oh fuck yeah, still going. Yeah.
Oh, I sorry.
I was-
very flattering for.
I'll sit in now, and then you can make a chimera of the two of us.
so some of my Novichok went on the table. Novichok.
Finish the rest of it with me.
Yeah. I think your hair is quite similar, to be honest.
Well, she does have fantastic hair. I was going to say.
Well, so much the better.
Are we in this one? We're in that one. We're in this one.
Who knows? Are we actually on? Can you actually see this?
Yes.
A painting is happening here
Gurning now.
Guernica.
The Guernica.
going to be like a metamorphose.
There's some blood.
Exactly.
Yeah. Blood coming down from the vampire. Yeah, there you go. I just ate your son.
It's male meets female.
I ate your babies.
It's east meets
I'm a
west.
communist. I eat
Casta
babies.
Semana.
It's-
You see, Casta Semana was banned.
If you want,
The hermaphrodite was banned. She's an athlete who's got lots of testosterone. Female athlete. got
Oh,
lots of
African
Oh,
looking.
yes.
Yeah.
Lots of testosterone.
The man.
Unsure. It's not clear
Oh, right.
whether it's like
But like looks like a man.
Like looks very
Very
masculine. build.
Powerful legs.
Yes,
Yeah.
and like the traps.
Yeah.
Delts. You know, there's that very thick neck.
Yeah.
So she was banned by the
FDA.
IOC, or there was a sporting regulator from competing against women.
And is that so? What's her name? Casta Semana. Was she born a man?
No, she's born. Well, she claims that she is a woman, but just happens to have naturally secreted a great deal of testosterone.
So I mean, is that you know you can
No.
take supplements that have a lot of testosterone apparently.
Yeah.
So is she a woman who's taken too many testosterone supplements to
It's unclear. She says that she naturally secreted it in her, so she's just a very masculine.
So you know why Paisley is called Paisley? Because it's a village in Scotland where they used to sell
Yes, it comes-
Oriental
yes.
rugs. It has nothing to do with the pattern,
So
actually.
it's the oldest pattern in the world, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oldest ever pattern, Paisley.
yeah.
well, it's helpful. It's a
Yeah, it's the same shape as seeds or something. Or like,
if you look, it goes deeper and deeper.
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the
and it's like I think it's like the oldest pattern ever expressed, or like it's the first. Like if you look back in.
So Castor Semana.
All right, go on.
Come
Come closer because the microphones will be able to pick it up.
Castor Semana came up against the problem of whether sex is a binary. So you got two poles, masculine and feminine, that are 1 and 0, masculine 1 and feminine 0, or
Osmosis.
whether it's an osmosis, which is a gradient, where we have a spectrum of like more or less testosterone, more or less. So you go all testosterone when they're all estrogen at the other. And so she's come up against that because we haven't really defined whether it is
That's gender rather than sex, is it?
no sex. So because like are there two sexes or is sex a gradient of you're either more male or more female?
Like until a couple of years ago, it's definitely two sexes for 99.9% of people.
Yes, but so then what they're saying is the outlier defines the idea. So you've got to incorporate all of the outliers
Oh,
into
right,
the
okay.
theory rather than saying
Oh, yeah, it's not
this theory
fair.
covers most of the phenomena. Like that's
Okay, so the outlier. So Casa Samana is the outlier.
Yeah.
So how do you count? How do you include Casa Samana in a thing? Because 2 eyes, a nose, 2 arms and legs. It's like everything else is totally normal.
Hands,
in terms of
shoulders, knees,
human.
and toes.
yes.
And
And
so-
so what you saw is this actually also yesterday there was a fight at Spotify over Joe Rogan and whether they were going to delete. So Joe Rogan's just gone from YouTube to Spotify. He's ported his library of previous shows.
He did something about Casa
on
Samana.
Spotify. No, it wasn't about Casa Samana. It was about wrestlers, male wrestlers, who then claimed to be women to compete in women's wrestling, and they
South Park did an episode about
and
this.
they beat the women to a pulp
Funny as fuck.
because they've got more
Yeah,
muscle mass, they've got denser muscles, more fast
Nickel mass.
they've got they've
Bigger
got more
mickles.
bulk. Even if they take a little bit of estrogen for a little while, the bone mass, all of these things they happen in your teenage years and childhood. The masculine.
Oh, we're going into Klein again.
Male and female
Klein
bodies-
theory
male
on
and female bodies
formation
develop very
psychology.
differently from very
I'm
young.
a Kleiner.
No, this
Gender-
Miss Klein destroyed
And so they can't then just have a little bit of estrogen and then expect to be women without beating women to a pulp. And so Joe Rogan is very much very on the record
Conditioning
on the show,
theory.
saying that it's absolutely unacceptable for men to compete against women in combat sports or really any sports because it's unfair.
Well, what
to
about the
women.
Amazons and the Centaurs? They were competing before.
I suppose
Christ.
it's like
And
what,
so Spotify has now had an internal fight over whether they're going to try and censor Joe Rogan in his previous podcasts in the library over these what they call transphobia.
whereas YouTube wasn't censoring.
No, because now he's taking the library off YouTube and taking it to Spotify.
Yeah.
Spotify are now having an internal fight over whether they want to have what they say is something called transphobia on their archive. So it's like right of the moment this idea of censorship.
How much junk mail do we read? I mean, to fill our heads with all this unnecessary supplementary knowledge.
Actually, this is what I was thinking about. That's why. What's his name? Piers Morgan. I was thinking Piers Morgan and Twitter are sort of the two kind of multipliers of nonsense. It's like 'cause it's all. It's so much ephemeral nonsense that'll be here today, gone tomorrow, and you know, you know, the silent majority, like, you know, the media companies cater to the vocal minority. You know, the people making the fuss, that they're who are catered to by the media. Whereas the silent majority, they just want, you know, quality stuff rather than of the moment stuff. You know, quality beats
Good architecture makes money.
well, no, does it? Don't know. What is good architecture? I mean, there's good architecture which is actually good, and then there's stuff that's made.
Matter of opinion.
Yeah. So how do you? What? Who's if? Yeah.
Well, okay.
Objective. What's objectively good? That's what I'm trying to say.
Architecturally good is something based on harmony as
Okay.
opposed to dissonance.
Yeah, so if you look at
So
fractals-
is the Rite of Spring objectively good because that's based on dissonance,
It's harmonic dissonance.
deliberate dissonance.
Yeah.
In the same way that brutalism's deliberately
Yeah, exactly.
okay. But then you could easily make a rubbish.
There's been lots of
yeah.
examples of
It's
that.
easy to do rubbish barbarism. It's difficult to do good barbarism. It's difficult to do anything well. You know, trying to play wind instruments in tune with each other is fucking art in itself. But you know, it's you know, that's what it's about.
Being in tune.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
we agree with that?
Yeah.
Being in tune is a good.
Yeah, because it's
As
about
opposed
it's
to
about
not
trying to
in tune.
achieve it's about trying to achieve something
there's
deliberate.
There's charm in folk music where the hurdy-gurdies aren't quite.
Yeah, of course. But it's
But there's
there's
still.
no objective
attempting
measure.
it.
But what's important is that what's
I
trying
think
to be
there is.
achieved.
Yeah. What about
What's
world
trying to be
music?
achieved?
Yeah.
What's trying to be achieved is what is being achieved. It's like it's about truth. Essentially, it's about truth. It's about people working together to at the same job, at the same thing. It's like
Then what's not good is when people play out of tune because they can't hear.
Yeah.
Because they're not, able to use
Yeah.
the tonal system.
yeah. If they're
And
playing
they
out of
can't
tune because-
hear, so they think that they're talented. But everyone who has a musical appreciation can't listen to them because it's dissonant.
Well, there's the four competencies, isn't there? There's conscious incompetence, where you know your shit at playing the violin. Then there's
What you mean? The idea of the amateur? Welcome to England. We're all amateurs.
So you were addressing unconscious incompetence, where you don't know that you're really bad, and then when you get a bit better, you realise that you get to a position of conscious incompetence, where you know you're bad. And
So you have something to
improve.
strive
Yeah.
for,
Then you know what.
Then you get to a state of conscious competence, where you're
You know that
trying
you're
to
able to
achieve
do it.
something really hard. You're trying your best.
Yeah.
And then you get to virtuosity, you get to unconscious competence, where you're doing it without even thinking about it, and then you're able to
Effortless mastery.
improvise in the moment.
Effortless mastery. Who's a saxophone player who said effortless mastery? He's always working towards effortless mastery. Sonny Rollins. He was on about unconscious competence.
Yes.
Yeah, like we walk, we don't even know we can walk, but we do it.
Yes.
With
But what's the other
yeah.
term we were talking about when you don't show all the hard work?
Sprezzatura,
Yes.
very sprezzy. So sprezzatura is a concept by Bartolome Castiglione, who was a 16th century courtier in his book The Art of the Courtier, L'arte de Cortese, and he had the idea that the courtier, to be impressive in the court, has to be good at a lot of things, like speaking and
Dancing
and
and
riding
fencing
horses and charming women and playing musical instruments and designing buildings and fording rivers and building bridges and inspiring people to conquer things and so on. And so the courtier has to be very good at a lot of things.
Mhm.
And the best way of being good at those things is to have practiced so much in private and got so good at it,
Yeah.
And not
you
show
can
the
then
working
display
process.
Yeah,
your
of
unconscious
course. Yeah.
competence,
Yeah.
like the swan pedaling madly under the surface of the water,
So gracefully,
gliding
yeah.
gracefully over the surface. And so he then gave
Oh,
a
it's like
tutorial.
those funny there's this Russian folk dance where the women have such long skirts that you can't see the legs, and they walk around and move so quickly with their feet. It looks like they're floating around in circles,
I look like Amy Winehouse. Cross.
which is exactly the same idea.
Yes.
The cross.
That you can't see.
I
the
haven't looked yet. I'm waiting the reveal.
Oh yeah, am I supposed to
You
be
can see
looking
it.
at you when I
I think
actually draw? Because I haven't been.
I'm your muse.
Yes,
Phil.
It's been replaced by.
I know your muse.
Yeah, yeah. Bearded lady.
Oh,
Oh, hello.
great hair. Fucking ugly face.
Yeah, speaking of bearded ladies,
Oh,
so yes, it's right on the white hot moment of bleeding edge,
the hot button
it's the
topic.
bleeding edge in front of the cutting edge.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so if you think about it, there's a knife. If you think about the metaphor, the cutting edge is being on the blade of the knife.
Yeah.
But being on the bleeding edge is being inside the flesh, in front of the thing.
Oh,
that
right,
I'm sticking
okay,
into.
right,
So
yeah.
even in front
Of the cutting
of
edge.
the cutting edge.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So the bleed. You could show this, I think. Can you show this?
Oh, yes.
Press what button?
Not immediate. No, it won't work yet.
Oh, wait,
It needs to be plugged in.
Okay.
You can plug it into that.
No, it's
I could
that's
just
not
turn the
working.
camera
at
as
the
well, but
moment. We need to have an
I could
HDMI.
give you an H. We can take one of these cameras out. We can put this HDMI in it. If you unwrap that and plug it into
Into this,
Lorenzo's computer.
and then into that.
Oh, that's much better. Yes, I've improved it a lot.
Oh yes, I had a light bulb moment. You know.
Eureka!
Well, it's a Russian light bulb, so it doesn't work.
Joe Rogan has Douglas Murray on us now.
Oh really? Oh okay. How is Douglas?
Douglas
I haven't
Murray
seen
is.
him. No. He's a politician. He used to be my drinking buddy in Cambridge.
He's a spectator guy.
Yes, he's the editor. He used to be my drinking buddy in Cambridge. I haven't seen him in a few years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Very interesting.
yeah, maybe. Well, it's just easier because I don't have to look for model all day. Might as well.
Keep it live.
Masturbation is easier.
Under the threat of local lockdown.
Yeah, send me the link.
Masturbation is always
What
easier
was
than
that?
sex.
Why are they
Send me
why is
the
it
link.
a hard bass? Hard bass?
Is that a Russian thing?
It's like
Like
my
touch
brother's
bass.
got into hard bass.
Oh, bass music.
Well, like there's this Russian hard bass. It's like people in Moscow wearing Adidas tracksuits going.
In train spotting.
Yes.
Tectonic 20th.
Rap. Yeah. I mean, it's quite it's
Look, let's face it. Russia lost its culture with the Russian
hard
Revolution.
bass.
What's your website, Katya?
www.
Hmm.
Dot.
Yeah.
KatyaKan.com.
Katya Cat.
Katya can.
Hard bass
Because
is
I
like.
can.
What is
Yes,
hard
you
bass?
can.
Let's put some hard bass on.
Yeah, so
What was the hard bass reference?
There's a lot of Russians here, and Russian people like hard
If you
bass.
guys want to come to my events, I can follow you on Instagram. I'll try not to stalk you. After this story.
Oh, you know, I've heard about you and your stalking.
I've got 2 friends left on
That's the
Facebook
Russian hard
Who
bass.
Here we go.
Okay, this is a
who wants to take this spot.
Right. Okay. I know what he means
But they
now.
use the old school.
Have you got
Do
my?
you know
Have you got my?
wait, who is this?
Input.
T-Fest is what you do.
Is this your company?
I can play cheesy Russian music for
Is this
everyone.
cheesy?
Timothy. Let's play Timothy.
Timothy.
Yeah, I get it.
Ollie, have you got my
You want to
input?
follow yourself as well.
We're on.
Yes.
Oh yeah, okay.
Straight from USSR.
So here we see some of Katya's artwork. This is a vortex of rabbit as embryo, as Newton from Blake
Oh, we went down this
flying
rabbit hole
through
a while ago, didn't we?
a
And you
vortex.
showed us that video.
And then we see
guy who was the club in the
Some
club.
more.
I like
He
your
was shot at the
explanations
end.
better.
Then we have a chimera,
Your brother saw that.
a hydra almost chimera of different Tatar
Yeah, Leningrad or
figures. Well, Grand Tataria encompassed all of Russia and Korea and so on, and China, and here we have it. This we saw the other day, didn't we? In Aqua 7 with our friend Cyrus Cookson, good friend of the show, and so we have a UFO with a meteor crashing. It looks like into it, with a great conflagration on the horizon, and a woman and child in electrostatic, who are appearing against the foreground. In watercolor on paper, and we see a snowy landscape. Perhaps it's Iceland, and we're seeing the emergence of
the Lampochki.
of
Yeah, the
our
Lampochki.
I like his explanations better than
neighbours,
Better than his work, yeah.
our new neighbours who come out of
do the drunk
Nova
coffee voice.
Zembla.
This is a paradoxical.
So no, it's a Pandora. It's a Pandora's boxicle
Is that the
watercolor on
Italian
paper.
cake? Pandora, yeah.
Pandolf, isn't that Pandolf?
Are we looking at? Are we looking? Are we,
So
I can
yes,
take a picture.
yes. So here we have a wide watercolor, 170 by 100. So it's a meter high. It doesn't look.
And it's going
it
at
doesn't
£2,000.
That's the size of a person.
Any takers on
Yes,
the
it's
phone,
life size.
£3,000. Yes, 350.
And we have on the live stream and so Pandora's box looks like a kind of hurdy-gurdy almost, and she's opening. Maybe it's a sapient pearwood, and has
Sounds
legs.
psychedelic synthesizer.
Yes, or like a vocode,
I like the rabbits.
I've got a vocoder.
Yeah.
Over to you.
We incorporate
Like
into our
the
MIDI,
Middle
into our
Eastern
MIDIs.
shaman with the
Um,
chastity belt.
So
I like the.
so
I
here
like
we
the-
have
I'll show
here
you
we
those
have
particular
rabbits.
the hyper-real
Driving a hard
Here we
bargain.
have
Oh, yeah, the
rabbits.
yellow rabbit.
is in flowers as the rabbits with
Yeah.
with women in the lotus position, naked women
Nusa
in the lotus
spaghetti.
position.
Just keep going.
Um, So naked women in the lotus position inside flowers as the
Oh,
crowning
is it a
stamens.
Buddha thing?
The crowning stamens of the flowers. They're in the lotus position. The
Yeah.
nude women with rabbits' heads, and then we have a giant D in the sky.
Yeah, this one is.
Then we have a tortoise. Again, there's a lot of Terry Pratchett references. There's Katya. There's Katya in her rabbit costume with the
Yeah, but
phone
it's the color.
the phone handbag, which I did answer once.
Petersburg Academy of War.
Have you got that, Katya? Have you got that video of me answering your answering your phone handbag in Aqua 7? Actually,
Oh, that's a long time.
Yes.
ago.
hello. No, he's not here.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
That's
Click.
hilarious.
So again, and more Terry Pratchett references of tortoises and so on, rabbits, the world it stands on, and then we have
Sorry.
a Rococo drawing room.
I like this one a lot as well.
We have a Rococo drawing room
Yeah,
with somebody appearing
Base
through
crash.
it looks like a mermaid appearing through a mirror. And then we have a vocoder. Here we are. So here's what we were talking about earlier. It's at Aqua 7 now, available for purchase over in Bulls Pond Road, Aqua 7 Bar. And here you can see some of Katya's fantasias of the things you can see in Almaty during Soviet
We don't have
times.
a hammer, but
You can either
sold.
see a wallpaper crazed wallpaper pattern, or you can see MTV. Here we go.
What is it that you can see, Lorenzo? Tell me what you can see.
I can see the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, and I can see a rabbit on the shoreline
Almost.
with lichen on the rocks on the Discovery Channel.
Oh yeah, can you sing do it like we do it on Discovery Channel.
And with Soviet wallpaper behind.
Can you read us
On
a
an old
poem?
Russian TV set. On an old Russian TV set. It's like a recitative.
It's Deo Domine.
And then somebody came to the door and nobody wanted to answer it.
Vatem in templum est. Vates in templo
To
est.
advertise the other art. This is the new artwork by our lovely host. He wants us to convert it from man-hate
Give us
to
this day our
neutral
daily bread.
territory.
Like Switzerland.
Give us this day. For
Enlighten us, Lorette.
So what are we seeing? We're seeing
against us.
Just do
against
it.
us.
We're seeing "Just Do It," which is a Nike slogan. Nike being one of the facets of Athena, goddess of victory. And
Ticked off.
we see Katya, an apotheosis of Katya as a genie against the aurora borealis, the northern lights, and she's appearing doing a little Egyptian dance in trainers.
She's a
and
genie
not
in
much
the
else.
light bulb.
She is a genie in
Hilarious style.
and there's another version of her as a zombie who's actually
In a Ku
who's
Klux
actually
Klan hat.
releasing her from
Yeah.
that trap. And here we have a crucifixion of a rabbit as a naked girl, again with the aurora borealis in a Russian forest, far to the north, in the Arctic Circle.
We should do a take of God Rest You Merry Gentlemen.
Theodore is born on Christmas Day. Tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy, oh tidings of comfort.
Do you want a medal? Or do you think I'm some sort of cunt?
And here we have Easter Island, the Easter Island rabbit. A Muai
The Knights of Knee.
in Utopia in Cyrillic. In Cyrillic.
No, it's not in Cyrillic.
Oh, it's Greek.
It's in lowercase
Oh, you
Greek.
said it was Greek.
Academy
Yes.
boy.
Wasn't
Academy
in
boy.
Cyrillic.
Farm girl and academy boy. What did you
read?
study at
What did I
Cambridge?
read?
How
I
did you
read
get in
literature.
there? You can't
I-
even read in Greek.
I'm blagging.
Ancient Greek.
Up the ancient
That's
Greek. Up the
anathema.
ancient Greek without a paddle.
Do you know what that message says? Can you read that at the bottom one? Da with
Da with Simichi, Kias, and Squat, Gopnik style Adivas.
what does that mean?
It's actually
This is
Polish.
gibberish, really.
Oh, right.
That's your brother.
It's like, says
Oh,
like,
hello, Marek.
it's like what, like Russian, like Gopnik are Russian chavs.
Oh.
And Samish are like sunflower feeds. So typically Russian chavs wear Adidas and they squat and eat sunflower seeds.
Oh,
with
right.
cap on.
That's exactly what
That's
the videos are like.
Yeah, it's about that.
Russian based,
Yeah,
hard based. Yeah.
of Leningrad.
So what do we
We-
found?
we
Yeah,
streamed
it's a tie.
it.
Right, yeah, can you hold it for me?
We didn't
Can you hold it
You
while
can
I
see-
put this?
A little more
Sense it
has
in the
appeared
leaves.
of our
Yeah.
Katya Chimera.
It was implicit in the.
That's appeared.
Katya Chimera Khan.
Slash
Katya Chimera Khan.
Winehouse.
Winehouse. Amy Winehouse.
Androgynous humor.
Wow, you can actually do harmony there
We
with,
want
with
to
that.
say
Wow,
some
wow,
final
wow.
words
So this guy gets
concludes the circular
Then he
narrative
sits down,
of time.
squats.
So,
basically, like, look at him. He's like, I'm at a
the rule of
prison,
6 is
freedom, what do I do?
the greatest attack
Okay, so-
on
the
civil
revolver.
liberties since
It's a
slavery
revolver.
in what should be the land of the free, the earliest common law jurisdiction, Britain. And what we can see now is that we need to undermine this unacceptable overreach by the Public Service Corporation, otherwise known as the government. They are your servants. The civil servants are your servants. They're servants of the public. You're a member of the public. Remember that. Whether
Democratia,
whether they're ministers are servants. Civil servants are servants. The BBC are servants, right? So you remember, you're the masters. You members of the public, you citizens, are the masters. They are the servants. You have rights. You have rights. They have duties, right? They have duties to you, to serve you. They're there for your convenience. Know that as the starting point for your understanding of law.
Democratia demos est.
Secondly, we should not have to exempt ourselves from these lockdown illegitimate restrictions. But the way you can do it is by founding a £12 limited company on companieshouse.gov.uk in your house. And then every house in this nation will be a workplace and will be exempted from the rule of
degenerate
six.
masters.
So that's your homework. Go away and do it. And then we will reconvene next week and give you the next stage of how to accelerate out of this global reset with the new Athens. That was the rule of six from me, Lorenzo Mefsut, from Philip Firsov, our resident artist and aesthetician, historian, sculptor, and in this case, Paisleyist. Paisleyologist. Because of course it's a school too. Schools as well.
Paleontology.
So that's it from me, Lorenzo Mefsut, Philip Firsov, Katja Kan, Dan Kalupski, and our host Oliver Nelson at Mornington Media. We'll see you next week.
Might just charge my phone.
We did it.
It's like so.
How many viewers have we got?